there, and welcome to Menu Talk. I'm Pat Kobe, Senior Menu Editor at Restaurant Business, and I'm here with Bret Thorne.
Yes, I'm Senior Food and Beverage Editor of Nation's Restaurant News and Restaurant Hospitality. Hi, Pat, and welcome, everybody.
Bret, happy Valentine's Day. We were recording this the week before, so.
We are recording this on Valentine's Day, a holiday that I do not observe, and certainly wouldn't eat out in a restaurant on Valentine's Day, because probably most people listening to this podcast know it's not a good time to go out on Valentine's Day, because, you have all these people who only go to restaurants twice a year and they don't know how to act, and the stakes are very high because, they have to impress their significant other, and, I don't know why you do it.
Yeah, well, I happened to go out last night. I didn't realize when I made these plans that it was Galentine's Day, because that's the day before Valentine's Day. And I went out to dinner and the restaurant was jammed. I was with two friends and it was all decorated with hearts. It was a Turkish restaurant, so it was all decorated with hearts and they had roses on each table. And it was really very nice, but it wasn't more expensive. I mean, we just ordered off the regular menu. So it was a regular meal and and the service was really good and they were very nice. So.
And were both of your friends women?
Yeah.
So it was actually
a Valentine's
Day thing for you. I heard a term singletine, which is when you're single on Valentine's Day, which I don't know. I don't feel like you need to rub it in.
Yeah, that is. I think Galentine's, is definitely a marketing ploy as well, but it seems to work. And, restaurants could build in another day around Valentine's Day. So.
Well, and the fact that it's on a Friday really gives them like a whole weekend to play around.
Right.
And that's cool. And if they do it well, it can be I'm sure, a highly profitable and successful weekend. So do that next year, restaurant operators, because that weekend's going to be over by the time you listen to this. I went to a pretty interesting restaurant opening this week. The View in New York City is a rotating restaurant at the top of the Marriott Marquis in Times Square. And it closed at the beginning of the pandemic for obvious reasons. There was nobody in Times Square or staying at the Marriott Marquis. And it was recently taken over by Danny Meyer's Union Square Hospitality Group. And that group and their catering arm actually now are doing most, if not all, of the food service at the Marriott Marquis, which is a huge hotel. And that's kind of a big deal that I don't think, we're just reporting on it now, but I didn't know about that. But what struck me about this opening is that in general, rotating rooftop restaurants serve bad food and, not well thought out cocktails. And, and there's no rule saying that has to be the case. And so clearly, Danny Meyer and his team aren't following that route. They hired the former corporate chef for the Star Restaurant organization in Philadelphia that, despite the fact that the restaurants are glitzy and have good lighting and stuff, the food is really good at them. And at most of them. I haven't been to all of them. But the food that we sampled at the opening of The View was similarly really good and not flashy. For example, there was shrimp cocktail, but it was tiger prawns that were beautiful and a really robust, rich, clearly house-made cocktail sauce that went with it. And the tuna tartare had avocado, which isn't all that unusual, but really interesting array of different flavors like lemongrass, and it really stood out. And I think that's apart from there are the trends of all the bells and whistles, and it should be Instagrammable, and your Bloody Mary needs to have 14 things on it, and your shakes need to be crazy. But as adult diners, I think that what many people enjoy is just straightforward food done really well. And I think that's what was being exhibited at The View. And, there's obviously other kooky stuff going on in other restaurants. The dirty soda trend which I still have to keep explaining to people. I don't think the term has caught on really.
I
But
think the people in the industry know it, but if you mention it to the average consumer, they don't know what a dirty soda is.
yeah, and it sounds gross,
It
which
does.
sure, but it's soda with something else added to it, often dairy or coconut milk. And Ziggy's Coffee is the latest chain to play around with that. They're testing it in I think 13 test locations, and we'll see how that goes. I mean, that those are sort of over the top photogenic items, tend to be really sweet, but
Yeah, some of them have even like pieces of candy or cookie in them, And I heard that dirty coffees are going to be the next trend after dirty sodas.
did you hear that? But I mean, coffee with dairy isn't like that's normal, though.
Well, I guess with pieces of candy or cookies in them rather than, just on top crumbled or.
I mean, that's a logical progression because we've seen. I mean, the majority of coffee drinks are now served cold, and clearly teas with a bunch of stuff added to them, boba tea. But also, they don't just have boba; they have other little jellies and jams and puddings and stuff in them. So extending that into coffee makes perfect sense.
Yeah, people like things floating in their coffee now and tea.
If you get that fat straw, then it's
Yeah.
okay. As long as the edible parts are
Hmm.
could fit up that straw, then I guess it's kind of fun as long as you got to pay attention because I mean, like, it could be a choking hazard if you're not expecting.
Right. Well, I think I've seen boba in cocktails now too, but they're smaller so that they fit through a cocktail straw or a narrower straw. Martinis with little caviar pearls added to them, for example.
Oh, that sounds. I haven't had that. I want that.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Absolutely, caviar
I
pearls.
didn't try it, but I've seen it.
Oh, I would love to try that. And another trend with cocktails is having a little food served on the side, like often called
Hmm.
a sidecar or something. Just a little snacky thing that's been going on for a couple of years. But I think it's a way to sort of enhance the cocktail experience. I had some sort of old fashioned variation, I believe, a couple of days ago, and it was served with some caramel corn,
Mm.
which
Well, that's a good combo.
yeah, I enjoyed it.
Well, we both of us do menu tracking every week, and in my taste tracker this week, I noticed that there were a lot of convenience stores releasing limited time offers along with restaurants. So it seems like they're trying to build traffic too, or do more interesting items just for a limited time, or even try out something that might work on the permanent menu. So a couple of them, RaceTrac introduced a taco pizza, so that was kind of interesting. And Krispy Crunchy Chicken, which is kind of like a hybrid between a restaurant and a convenience store. They just came out with chicken nuggets, which is something that a lot of chains are doing now. But
Yeah, I noticed Crispy Crunchy Chicken's nuggets, and yeah, why not? Everybody likes like bite-sized breaded and fried chicken. Add a couple of different kinds of sauces to dip it in, and like people are going to be all over that. They'll love it.
definitely. So, as far as our interview this week, I spoke with Eric Huang, who is the founder and owner and chef at Pecking House in Brooklyn. And now he actually has a second Pecking House in Chinatown in New York City. And he actually started the concept during the pandemic. He was making fried chicken out of his apartment and getting orders on Instagram and other social platforms. And it became super popular. And so he opened a brick and mortar. And now he has a second one. I think you've eaten there, Bret, because you used to live near there. So I haven't tried his chicken yet, but tell us about it. What's it like?
I mean, it's good. What it's most famous for is sort of a Chinese style kind of hot sauce, sort of
Mm-hmm.
along the lines of Nashville hot, but with Szechuan peppercorns and stuff.
Mm, yum.
And so it has that mala sort of spicy mouth numbing combination, and that's really their signature ingredient. They have some uh, unusual, nice side dishes, different kinds of salads, and pickled cucumbers, and all sort of Chinese, but obviously with the chef's own interpretation. And it's a smart concept. What do you guys talk about in the
Well, we
interview?
talked about the chicken and well, it was right before Super Bowl, so he was doing some wings as well,
Makes sense.
which makes sense. And about Lunar New Year. So, he grew up in a Chinese family, and there are certain significant foods you serve on Lunar New Year. So he was talking about some of the ones that his family did, like sticky rice dumplings are one of his family recipes, and that's really popular. And then a lot, he does the long noodles too, because noodles signify a long, successful year ahead. What was interesting, what he told me about China, Lunar New Year, is that it's really mostly about, success money wise. That's what Chinese families want to achieve in the year ahead. They want to, become wealthier rather than healthier. Like, but maybe healthier too, but wealthier is one of the big goals.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the common gift for Lunar New Year is red envelopes filled with cash, and there's a lot of expressions of hope that you will make more money in the coming year.
Right. Which is, at least they're honest about it. A
Yeah,
lot, a
and
lot
you
of
you
people,
eat the noodles for health to have a long life.
right. No, I'm sure they want to be healthier too, but it was
Yeah,
just a good rhyme.
and it's also interesting that it's really a family holiday, and often the only uh, day that or a couple of days that Chinese families will take off, and they really shut everything down. It's interesting. I remember quite a few years ago, I was talking to a Chinese immigrant who, uh, with all of the hype leading up to Christmas, was like, "Whoa, we must get like a ton of time off for Christmas because like it's clearly like there's so much hype." And then she found out that you get one day off.
Well, yeah, well, Eric grew up in a family that had a Chinese restaurant, a full service Chinese restaurant, not like Pecking House. So he worked really hard. He did work in the family business, but this is more of a fast casual concept.
Yeah, although plenty of people do dine in there, like
Mhm.
the tables
No, he
are
said,
pretty full.
I think the one in Chinatown doesn't have as many tables from what he said, but I think there'll be more pecking houses in his future because it's a successful concept and has a limited menu and people love it.
Let's take a listen to the interview.
Yes, definitely. Even though we're at the tail end of Lunar New Year, he has some really cool things to say.
And there is another Lunar New Year you get next year, so get ready.
Definitely. Welcome. I'm here with Eric Wang, who's the chef and owner of Pecking House in Brooklyn. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Pat. I'm really excited to be here.
I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
It is.
Good.
Yeah, Huang. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Okay. Well, why don't we start by you telling me a little bit about Pecking House and how you got it started?
Sure. It was a total accident. I don't know if this is an okay joke to make. We usually joke that it wasn't on a planned pregnancy. Um, it was so I worked in fine dining for a very long time. And when the pandemic started, my family's restaurant, Peking House in Queens, which had been there for a very long time, it shuttered due to the lockdown. So, I took to being like, what can we do here to kind of keep it alive, kind of keep the lights on, so to speak. So I started frying some chicken and delivering it to people. And I just thought I was going to do this for a couple months just for fun and see what happens. But it has become my life. I am the fried chicken guy now. So we were delivering it all over during the pandemic. People really enjoyed it, and it was really fun and bringing a lot of comfort to people in a hard time. And yeah, we've opened a couple of restaurants now. So our first one in Brooklyn, in Prospect Heights, Park Slope area, and we this fall we opened our second restaurant in Chinatown in Manhattan.
Cool. And is your parents' restaurant open again, Peking House?
My mother still has a restaurant on Long Island in Manhasset called Pearl East. She's been doing great there for a long time. Unfortunately, the sun has set on Peking House. It is no longer. We were unable to reopen it afterwards. Yeah, I believe actually recently it has been bulldozed, so it's kind of sad.
Oh,
It's
that's
yeah,
terrible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was going to happen, like we knew always, but it had a great run, 40 years,
So, what sets your fried chicken apart? I mean, how did, you said people really loved it. So, what makes it so unique?
Well, if I may say so, it is an entirely unique style of fried chicken. Not too many people, if anybody, is doing it. If I have it correctly, it's very much like a representation of growing up here Chinese American and like my childhood. I grew up around that restaurant, going to the Kentucky Fried Chicken on Hillside Avenue, and grew up eating in Flushing and eating Sichuan food and eating Cantonese food and Taiwanese fried chicken. And, when it came to figuring out what we were going to do to keep the restaurant running, I was the only one cooking. So it had to be something that I could pretty much do myself. And all the equipment gave out on me except for the deep fryers. So I said, I guess we're doing fried chicken. And this recipe just kind of came to me almost like in a vision. And, it is 100% true that I happened to just get it right on the first try. Got very lucky there. It was just something that kind of came to me. And I think it really speaks to people. It's very unique. It's kind of marrying a lot of the great qualities in American fried chicken, crunchy crust, bone in, juicy, big piece of meat, kind of sensation of eating, with like the really nice crispy textures of like Taiwanese fried chicken because we use cornstarch and potato starch. And the flavor profile is fun too. It's, got this medium heat to it and a lot of tingliness from the Sichuan peppercorn. And yeah, we're pretty much doing it the same way as we have been for, coming close to 5 years now.
Well, did you add the chicken sandwich later then and some of the other items?
Yes. In the beginning, it was only the chili chicken. That was it. And then over time, it became, a bigger menu. Obviously, when we opened a brick and mortar, we expanded the menu. So, we have sandwiches and sides and salads. So, yeah, all those things came later on.
Super. And so the recipe just came to you like in a vision. Well, that's incredible.
Maybe that's not the right way to put it because it
No,
was
I
very
mean,
much like cooking under pressure.
yeah,
It wasn't like I woke up and had a dream about it. I
no,
just was like throwing things together in the pantry. But yeah, it just spoke to me, and I never intended it to build a restaurant, focused on the fried chicken.
right. Well, that's really exciting.
Mm.
So Lunar New Year celebrations are now going on, and it's the year of the snake. Are there any
hmm
special dishes associated with that sign, or does Lunar New Year have special dishes in general?
So I think it differs really a great deal from family to family and region to region. So I can only speak to my personal experience. I'm not aware of anything specifically for Year of the Snake, and at least the way I grew up, we didn't really change things a lot for depending on what year and what sign it was. I think the only ones that people in my family took a special note of were years of the dragon. Obviously, they fall on very fortuitous years of the year 2000, 2012, 2024. Last year was the year of the dragon. And, supposedly everyone born under this sign is very, blessed, so to speak. Very, very auspicious sign. But yeah, I mean, I grew up in a Chinese restaurant, obviously Peking House being the one I grew up in, and my mother's restaurant, Pearl East, I worked in a ton throughout my youth and my early adulthood. And so we had a working Lunar New Year. We always were cooking. The restaurant was always running. We always did lion dances in the restaurant. And yeah, it's a big part of my childhood. And, family gatherings, we tried to do them when we could, but obviously, that immigrant mindset, we were always working. So yeah, we tried to do the best we could, but we always tried to eat the sticky rice dumplings with soup, tang yen. Those were always fun. Those are something my grandmother made. And we always try to eat noodles, specifically buckwheat noodles, longevity noodles, obviously noodles, the long strands of noodles symbolizing long life. So that's what we do, at least.
So, what are the sticky rice dumplings like? I haven't heard of those before.
So I should get that recipe from my grandmother. It's a very simple soup, just a very like clear chicken and pork broth, cilantro, and shiitake mushrooms, a little bit of ground pork, and they're like little balls, and they're made from rice flour. And then I always remember as a kid, we rolled them. You just rolled them like almost like a snowball,
Right.
and they were tiny. And Yeah, they're sticky, they're glutinous, they have very much like a mochi texture that,
Interesting.
most like rice flour preparations do. And I don't really know the significance behind it. I mean, everything involving Chinese New Year is related to money in some regards. There's a really great Ronnie Cheng joke about how Chinese people don't say Happy New Year; they say "Gong Xi Fa Cai," which means "I hope you get rich," which is the most important thing for the coming year: material comfort, material success. So, anything that looks like a purse or a coin or a bag of money is very appreciated during the new year.
Is that what the red envelopes are for? Like you put money in those, or
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, in general, there's, culturally in so many Asian cultures, it's not so much about, it's not greed, it's just material comfort. So it's like about, blessing people and showing affection through money and, and wanting people to feel taken care of. As kids, we always got little hongbao, little red envelopes full of a little bit of cash here and there. And like petty little kids, we would keep inventory of who was the most generous of all our aunts and uncles. And then it's supposed to be that when you get married, now it's your turn to give red envelopes out to everybody. But millennials get married a lot later, so I'm not getting married till June, so I
oh,
still
well,
got some time.
congratulations! That's great.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
So, are you doing anything special at Pecking House for Lunar New Year?
Fortunately not. It's always kind of gets conflated with Super Bowl time. And when it comes to fried chicken, and obviously Super Bowl and football is the most important religion in America, that's kind of always what takes precedence. And I think people really like going to like more traditional Chinese restaurants for Lunar New Year, but
Right.
I would like to do something in the future. Obviously, our food is kind of auspicious in a lot of ways, like things that are red. Our food is red. We got a lot of chili oil on everything, and it's a really wonderful color. So red and yellow and things like that. We have done, the salted egg wings. They have this really beautiful golden color to them, and our chili chicken. We've done some, combo platters, if you will, for Lunar New Year. But I think a lot of people like to do the more traditional route with their family. But maybe we'll think of something next year.
Yeah. So, do people order like your wings and chicken for the Super Bowl for Super Bowl parties? I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely for Asian American Super Bowl parties.
Yeah.
I think maybe perhaps, I think most people are obviously gravitate towards buffalo style wings, that is very much Super Bowl fare. But we've gotten more and more popular every year. Last year we did a pizza collaboration with Finny Pizza that went really well. And this year we'll be pushing the wings a lot, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, wings are so popular, and even like the U.S. style wing places are doing Asian sauces on them. So
I know. Yeah, I saw that. There was a podcast that you did recently about Wingstop and their multicultural sauces. Yeah. I mean, hey, there's a lot of great flavors there, right? Like Korean fried chicken has so many wonderful flavors, and I think everyone's becoming exposed to it, which may not seem all that remarkable to people now, but if you grew up in the 90s, you realize we've come a long way.
Yeah, definitely. Well, when I make wings for for myself, I always use like Asian flavors because I don't really like buffalo flavor that much or Nashville.
Yeah.
I think the Asian flavors are much better. So.
Yeah, I like it all. I mean, obviously that's kind of what makes Pecking House what it is. Like, a little bit of American, a little bit of Chinese, but I like it all. And, I've always joked that buffalo wings were my death row meal. So not a very classy one, but an enjoyable one.
That's fine. So you worked in the kitchen at 11 Madison Park. So how does that inform your management or your culinary style at Pecking Houses? Do you take learnings from there? I mean, it's an entirely different kind of,
Entirely
operation.
different.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I have been definitely humbled a little bit. I think a lot of people, they assume, oh, I've done fine dining at the highest level. I must be able to do casual food, right? It's a totally different beast. And I knew that to some degree, having grown up in a somewhat casual Chinese restaurant, but nowadays, given how competitive, especially the fried chicken market is, it's really hard. It's the main difference from a business perspective is, with fine dining, this is like someone's once in a lifetime kind of meal. At most, maybe once a year. There's very, very people who are going to go to Love Madison Park more than one time a year. So, you're bringing someone in for this like life-changing experience, and it's obviously immensely challenging, and it was very hard, and it made me such a better chef that the training was so rigorous. But the casual, restaurant game is totally different. You do need people to come like twice a month, 3 times a month, and offering a product at the right price point that can be executed in a way that people are going to come back, over and over and over again. It's just like a totally different ballgame. But all that being said, it was very good training. 11 Madison Park is unusual when it comes to 3 Michelin star restaurants, just because it's so big. We were feeding 200, 250 people on Saturdays sometimes, and that required very well-managed and perfectly executed logistics, which I think was a huge part of how Peking House did well. As in the beginning, it was just me figuring out how to fry hundreds of pieces of chicken and getting it delivered to people and hiring people to route them to, everywhere from the Bronx down to Flatbush. Like, we were going, all our delivery zone was the entirety of New York City. Logistically, I learned a ton from my training there, even though the cooking doesn't look as recognizable. There's no tweezers at Peking House.
So do you think you said you have 2 locations now. Are you thinking of expanding to more?
Yes, I think so. Baby steps. Obviously, building a restaurant for the first time was immensely challenging. I learned everything the hard way. Building a second restaurant went better, but still exhausting and taxing. So I don't see us opening a restaurant this year, 2025, but perhaps in 2026. I think we've made the joke, like, you're asking somebody who has like an infant if they want another kid, and it's like, let me just get some space to think about that for a second. And no, but we do want to keep this going, keep this growing. I think people ask me, do I want to go national? And I'm just like, okay, baby steps here, guys. Like, let's talk about Queens first, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But yes, we would love to return to Queens, obviously where this whole story started. And we know we're very well loved there. And we'd love to go into Manhattan at some point also. So we'll see. But again, baby steps.
I hope you come to, I live on the Upper East Side. We could use something like that.
I would love to. Yeah, we did well up there. So I really like it up there too. Mm-hmm.
And so you're mostly delivery and takeout, or do people come in and sit as well?
People come in and sit. We're not a full service restaurant. We're a counter service restaurant. Right. So, the service is very casual, but I maintain that it's very fun and it has a lot of hospitality touches to it as well. And people do like coming in. Actually, the majority of our business is dine-in.
Oh, how many seats do you have?
In Brooklyn, we have 40 seats.
Oh, that's
and in Chinatown Chinatown's a baby restaurant. It's like 12 seats, so it's tiny. But yeah, we'll probably go somewhere in the middle for the next one. But no, it's really fun, and I think as much as it is like a takeout friendly food, there's nothing like sitting around with 5 friends.
Yeah, no, I would prefer to sit.
Yeah, and eating it fresh from the fryer. I mean, fried chicken. We've figured out a lot of tricks to get it to travel well, but still, you can't compare that when it's fresh. Right. So yeah.
So aside from getting married, what else are you looking forward to in the year ahead?
Well, kind of just reclaiming my life a little bit. We've hired a wonderful new chef. He's doing such a great job, and he's an absolute delight to work with. My fiance works with me as well. She started working with me to open the second restaurant.
Oh, nice.
She's still with me, despite all the things we've been through in the last 6 months. Most challenging 6 months of our relationship so far, working together.
And it will last, because it sounds like you went through a lot.
No, yeah, I feel very good about it. I mean, there are definitely some arguments, but it made us stronger. And yeah, just looking to find some balance here. Obviously starting a business in New York City, of all places, is immensely challenging. I feel like it swallowed my life. And, fine dining was consuming for sure, but this is different. It's not an exaggeration to say I don't really feel like I've had a day off in 4 years.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I've always answered an email or thought about it or planned something or talked to one of my staff. And it's a very different kind of marathon. And we do have to learn how to strike a balance, because, you can't do that forever. Nobody can. So learning how to have a good relationship with the business. But I already feel great about it. Like, I've been spending the New Year in Brooklyn after spending the whole fall in the Chinatown location. And it's been good to reconnect with the Brooklyn team and our restaurant there. And it feels good. Everything feels good. I'm really excited to get married and figure out a way to, you know, make this a balanced part of my life.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Menu Talk. Like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Pat Kobe.
And I'm Bret Thorne.
See you next week.